Hey, what is up, everyone? So today I'm asking the question, is Sea of Thieves actually listening to us? Finally. I'm not sure, but I got this email sent to me for an insider survey, so I wasn't really sure what to expect with this, so I thought, why not just record it and we can kind of go through the survey together. So this is for insiders. I think every insider got this. So if you're in the insider program, check your email if you want to follow along with this video and we can do it together. But we're just going to go through this, and I guess the first question is a very open-ended one. Any other reason why you play Sea of Thieves? It's kind of funny that they didn't give other reasons, like they didn't give you a drop-down to steal. Fair enough, right there. Which of these trading companies do you most associate with? This is an interesting question because the hard part is like there's a side of me that wants to be honest and like go genuine with the question. There's another side of me that thinks that they're asking this because they're trying to figure out which content to make. So you kind of want to put it as Athena's Fortune, so they actually make a content update for Athena's Fortune. But I would say I'm more aligned with Reaper's Bones in terms of like the PvP and stealing and stuff. But I don't know. I think I'll go with Reaper's Bones just because that's kind of a more honest answer. But I kind of hope that they boost up this because what you really need is a good villain needs a competent hero character or good side to fight against. If you just keep building up the villain side and then leave this one all on its own, the villain has really nowhere to go. So you kind of have to improve both. Alright, so we get to choose 3 things that we like most about Sea of Thieves. So what our options are freedom to do what I want, when I want. It's a pirate theme, playing with friends, meeting other players in the world, lore, story, and world building, engaging in PvP with other players, exploring the open world, completing quest or world events, earning XP, leveling up, and earning rewards, unexpected emergent gameplay, range of cosmetics and customizations, and ability to create my own stories and adventures. So engaging in PvP is definitely going to be a top one right there. I would say playing with friends, but I mostly play solo, so I don't know if I really want to go with that as my answer. I would go with freedom to do what I want when I want. That's a easy one to go with. Let's go with lore, story, and world building. I think that's a good one to go with. Even though I don't think they've been doing that great of a job with it over the last few years. I feel like after Adventures went away, that really fell apart, the whole lore and story building. So in your own words, what do you like most about Sea of Thieves? Tucking and sneaking around. Please give us another update for it. That's what Season 17 should have been. You know, the whole Smugglers update should have been a whole sneaking and tucking type of faction that's really making that a permanent part of the game. But sadly, Season 14 was really the only season that was focused on that kind of aspect of the game. How often do you play Sea of Thieves? Definitely 2 to 3 times a week. I wouldn't say daily, but definitely 2 to 3 times a week. It used to be daily. Now, you know, it's no more just because there's not really that much left to do for me. At least that's interesting other than doing the heavy grinds of certain accommodations. When you play Sea of Thieves, how long is the average session? I would say it's definitely probably 90 to 120 minutes, so that we're looking about an hour and a half to 2 hours. That sounds about right. Which of the following is most likely? Okay, solo sloop. Which device do you play on? PC. Now, this is an interesting question because I've been thinking about making another video talking about this. I really hope that if more people are putting these like newer consoles in, and look, they even separated this out, they might be willing to get rid of the Xbox One generation. Even if we keep like these later on versions of the Xbox One that are a little bit more powerful, the mid-gen updates, that would, I think, help the game. So even if they, you know, cut it down so only these are compatible right here, that might actually improve things significantly if they're not having to support this. They also threw in the cloud option too, which is something that I mentioned about the Xbox One, where if they got rid of the Xbox One support for the game, they could potentially give those players access to the cloud version, maybe as for free, and they could play Sea of Thieves through the cloud, and that might be a good alternative to do it so that there's not that much backlash. It could also be a good way to kind of market their cloud platform, and then people that are playing Sea of Thieves on the cloud, they might start playing other games on the cloud, and you know that's a way you could kind of almost give like a sampler of what the service would be. How do you play the game? I have a digital copy. Are you Pirate Legend? Yes. You know, since they sent these out and they have your account that they sent it to you, it'd be more interesting to me, I think, if they connected your account with the survey. So then it kind of gives a little bit more feedback. So like they would already know if I'm Pirate Legend. They'd also know how much time I spend in the game, and they'd know like how far I've progressed for certain things, which might be a little bit better feedback if you combine that with the survey results. So I mean, there might be privacy reasons why they wouldn't want to do that, but I think that might be a little bit better of a way to get this data. Over the course of the last season, so season 16, have you purchased a cosmetic item or accessory from the Pride Emporium? I don't think I have, actually. I did buy the Plunder Pass, though. What are the following types of Sea of Thieves content or experiences do you enjoy? So, yeah, we'll just go down the list. Trading company voyages. When we talk about trading company voyages, I actually did make a ranking of all the voyages in the game. I'm not really someone that does voyages too often. I'll do raid voyages a lot. I like doing sea forts and skeleton camps and treasuries and that kind of stuff. I also do really like the lost shipment voyages. I think the ancient voyages are also really good, but I don't really do them ever anymore. Um, what other voyages do I like? I actually do like the latest Reaper voyage that we got, the Followers of the Flame. I've been doing that a little bit recently. Um, but I think I'll give it a 3. To go like middle down the road. World events. World events is another tricky one because if they're including the sea forts and other stuff, then I really love them. If they're counting stuff like Ashen Winds, Fort of Fortune, regular skeleton forts, I'm not the biggest fan of them. So I think we'll go a 2 overall. I wish they kind of separate that out more. I wish we had a better distinction between those because I view like sea forts and treasuries and skeleton camps as different than the skeleton forts or the Fort of Fortune because the sea forts and that kind of stuff, you can just go to it whenever you want unless someone's already there and just complete it at any point. Whereas the like Fort of Fortune, you have to wait for that to spawn. That's changed a little bit with the introduction of raid voyages, but the idea is still the same. There's one that's, always available, and then there's one that's kind of a limited time engagement. And the limited time engagement is what I think of as a world event. The other one I view more as just, something that you engage with whenever, kind of similar to like a skeleton ship or megalodon spawning. Like it just kind of exists in the world, at least kind of how I think of it, I guess. Exploring islands or world regions. Yeah, I'll be honest, I don't really care about this one too much. I guess, the world hasn't really changed since the Devil's Roar edition was added within like the first 6 months or a year of the game releasing. So I've basically mapped out in my head the whole map. I can pretty much navigate to any island without having to look at the map at this point. So really exploring and stuff, that's not really that interesting to me. Now, they do add some new stuff, like we were just about to get the smuggler hideouts and everything like that. So it's fun to explore those to an extent, but they haven't added anything new, really. There's been a few changes, I won't lie, but, in terms of big world region changes, no. Engage with emerging game elements. So this might be where they include more of the, well, they're not listing it. I was going to say this might be where they put the sea forts, but I will say I do like the emergent game elements a lot more than I would say like world events and other stuff. Emergent / shared world PvP. So I guess, just the shared world in general. Yeah. I mean, that's what I think makes Sea of Thieves unique compared to other games. Like, if you want just a solo or, co-op pirate adventure, go play a game like Black Flag or something like that. That's not what Sea of Thieves really is at its core. It's a PvPvE game. So I think that shared world is really important. Friendly encounters with other crews. Yeah, I'll go with that. Emissary play. I think emissaries are a great addition to the game. Even though a lot of people don't really understand how emissaries are supposed to work, emissaries are very much a risk versus reward type of exchange where you're choosing to take on more risk in exchange for more reward. But then for some reason, people get upset that, if you attack them or you try PvP with them and stuff, they get all mad about it. And they don't really realize that they chose to take upon the emissary flag. If you didn't have an emissary flag, you were less likely to get attacked. And that's just the truth. If you have an emissary flag, but then you say you have nothing, you still have something because you can get the flag from them. Hourglass. I hate it. I don't hate the concept of it, but it has such huge flaws, which we've talked about on many occasions. Guilds. I was going to say the only good thing about guilds is selling at the Sovereign Tent. But you were able to sell at the Sovereign Tent before that, so I'm going to put that as a no, but I'm going to put Captaincy as a very much. Buying cosmetics for gold and doubloons. So in terms of like currently right now, there really isn't anything that I'm interested in buying from the gold or doubloon shops. So I think I'm going to go with a 2 for right now, because I can't even remember the last time that I was genuinely excited to buy something from the outpost shops. There really isn't anything I can think of. Tall Tales, I'll give that a 4. I really love the Pirates of Life Tall Tales, and I do like the Shores of Gold, even though I think that's a little bit too long. And I like the Heart of Fire. But the Monkey Island Tall Tales I didn't really like that much, and some of the original Shores of Gold Tall Tales I didn't like either. And then live events, I'll give that a 3, I think. There's been some live events, like the recent Pirate Legend one that I really had fun with, but the other ones, like, I don't know. I don't really care. How do you engage with the Sea of Thieves community? Social channels, YouTube. Oh, there. YouTube. Actually, I have been going on Reddit more and just kind of looking at stuff. I've been replying to some things, but not too much yet. I guess I'll throw in our Discord, because we do have a Discord for the channel that we can talk about stuff. I wouldn't say I'm really too active in it. I'm just not someone that really posts too much outside of YouTube and things like that. So, I actually do look at the Sea of Thieves wiki I was actually looking at before this video to plan out my next video. Official Sea of Thieves site, I'm on there a lot. I didn't even know there was an official Sea of Thieves Xbox Club, I don't even know what that is. Yeah, I think, I guess forums would count because of the insider forums. I do post on there a good amount. Now, I might not be posting on there as much going forward because I can talk about it on the channel now whenever I see stuff that I'm really engaging with, but I'm still probably going to post a little bit on there. How do you watch Sea of Thieves content online? I guess I'll technically throw this in there just because I'm kind of part of that, but I will be honest, I don't really watch too many other Sea of Thieves creators online. I will occasionally watch them, but honestly, the biggest reason why I don't really watch too many other Sea of Thieves creators online is just because I don't want to, influence my opinions or kind of the content I'm creating on here, and I want it to be distinct. So I genuinely don't really have too much of a concept of what videos other creators are making, and that kind of helps it so that mine can say my own voice, and I'm not getting influenced by, oh, well, they're talking about this, so maybe I need to jump on this to, keep up with the trend, that kind of thing. There's probably going to be overlap just because there's not too much to talk about with Sea of Thieves over the last few years when they haven't really been doing too great with the game. But that's kind of why I don't really watch too much of other content creators. I think the last video I did watch was Captain Falcor talking about the game. So I did actually really like that video. Did a good job with that. If we are talking about content creators, though, I do follow on Twitter, X, a lot, and I do respond. I just saw one from Pace earlier today talking about the game, which I actually was thinking about making a video before, but there's just been so much to talk about with Sea of Thieves lately that I just don't really have the time to squeeze everything in. Already this video I pushed back to, today when you're seeing it, but, I've had it available since I think Friday. So there's just been a lot to kind of, make videos on and release for Sea of Thieves over the last couple of days and last week. So Sea of Thieves official channel there, and then that. So I think that's really it for me. What share of your playtime does Sea of Thieves actually account for? I play Sea of Thieves as one of a set of games I play regularly. I would say that is probably the best answer. I would say maybe occasionally, but I'm gonna keep it as that. Which phone games have you played in the last 3 months? Fortnite. I think that's it for me with this. Lots of games on here. I'm just gonna throw an addition of Lego Fortnite, even though it's kind of technically the same thing. Because that's where I've been spending a lot of time in. Ooh, now this is gonna be interesting. Cannon of Rage. So, the Cannon of Rage, this feature is of interest to me. I'll give it, I'll give it a 4. I've used this feature, yes. I enjoyed using this feature. I'll give it a 2. I wouldn't say it really is satisfying to me. This feature had a range of different ways to use it. Not really. I wouldn't say that. I'll use this feature again in the future. Yeah, I mean, I just used it last night, literally. But not really for, actual gameplay. It was mostly just to get the commendations done. I was trying to get some of the commendations done against a skeleton ship. So I wouldn't really say I was using it the way that, they're asking about in this, but have you encountered other players using this feature? I actually haven't. I haven't seen anyone using this. This feature was well balanced. I'm gonna put a 2 for this, not because it's overpowered, but because it's underpowered. I think it just burns up way too quick. It takes way too long to set up and retract. And it's just not that useful to me. This feature has added to the overall Sea of Thieves experience. No, I don't feel like any real change has happened with this. I understand what this feature is. Yeah, I do. Feedback on the search for ancient secrets. Real quick, I will say, I feel like this kind of survey should have came out maybe before Season 16 released, when we were all testing this stuff in Insiders. This stuff is kind of old. I mean, it's good to kind of follow up with it, so like I would be fine with maybe like an initial survey in Insiders, and then maybe one like 3 months after launch in retail, where you could kind of get the comparison between how it was initially received by Insiders and then how it was received after it's been in retail for a while. That might be good, and then maybe we can get into a cadence of having a survey once a month or maybe every other month. And then you could be testing out, like, you could be surveying for stuff that's already in the game and then surveying for stuff that's coming to the game. But this is the first step. I will say this is a little bit more interesting than I was expecting. I was kind of not sure what we're going to do with this video. I was just going to start recording, and then if it was, boring survey and really nothing interesting, I was just going to delete it. But I think so far this has been some interesting questions and interesting discussion to have. So now we're talking about the search for ancient secrets. So this is the longer one. This is the first voyage that we got for the Reaper's Bones in Season 16. So this voyage is of interest to me. No, not really. I have played this voyage. Yeah, I've done it a few times. I enjoyed playing this voyage. I'll give it a 2. I don't know. There's some problems with it, so I don't really do it ever anymore. The time taken to complete this voyage is about right. Yeah, I would say this voyage is pretty right. I actually do think the rewards are reasonable for this. Well, I wish they threw in a question about some of the problems that I have with it, because I do think the rewards, in terms of the basic gameplay, if you're just doing kind of like A to B, so like you do the gameplay and then you go turn it in, those rewards seem fine. It's when you add in the Reaper's Mark on top of that and you're marked on the map and you have to take it from wherever you are to Reaper's Hideout, and you can't go to any turn-in spot that's closer to that. So it's all that combined that really increases the amount of time it takes to do this voyage, and then it also just makes it so that you're in more danger, when you could do something else that might get you just as much reward for it. I feel like the really only reason you would be doing this voyage is to complete the accommodation. I don't think the reward needs to change. I think the other stuff needs to change. But I guess for now, I'll do a 4 for that. I do not intend to play the voyage again. I guess technically that's a lie, because I do intend to try to finish the accommodation eventually. But I think I'm going to leave that as a disagree, just because if I had the choice. If I didn't have the accommodation, there was no reason I would ever play that voyage again. I just don't really find it that enticing, especially given the PvP side of it that you have to deal with. This voyage has benefited the overall Sea of Thieves experience. I'll give that a 2, because I did have a lot of fun tucking at Reaper's Hideout and trying to steal the skull, but after the initial hype is over, it's just like the Skull of Siren Song. It's not really adding anything to the game anymore. So no one's really doing it. If no one's doing it, then it's not really adding anything. I understand what this voyage is. That's such a weird question to add on all of these, but okay. They messed up there. Followers of the Flame. So this is the latest voyage that we got in the game. This voyage is of interest to me. I will give that a 4. How much did I put for that? Yeah, that seems alright. I have played this voyage, yes. I enjoyed playing this voyage. I did. The time taken to complete this voyage was about right. Yeah. I like the shorter voyages. I think some people like longer voyages. I really like kind of compact, short voyages. I really enjoy having the voyage take place on one island and not having to sail between a bunch of different islands. So the Reaper voyages did a lot of things right in terms of what I like in terms of the voyage, but there's other things that I did wrong. The rewards for this voyage seem fair and reasonable. I would say the rewards for this are a little bit lacking. I wouldn't really put this above other stuff. I mean, the Chest of Bones is a nice addition. I will say I feel like this would be a lot better if the Chest of Bones counted for some of the accommodations related to opening up Reaper chests at like sea forts, treasuries, that kind of stuff. Because if I could basically take this voyage, get the Chest of Bones, and then go and do, a sea fort or Siren Treasury and that kind of stuff and work on those accommodations, that would make the Chest of Bones a lot more valuable, in my opinion. But right now, the Chest of Bones is really just used to, grab it, turn it in as quick as possible. I intend to play this voyage again. I do intend to play the voyage again. I was just playing it the other day, actually. This voyage has benefited the overall Sea of Thieves experience. I will say in terms of adding, a new quick type of voyage into the game, that's, pretty easy to do and kind of a more casual experience, which is why I think I like this more than the other voyage. This one I find a lot more casual feeling, where you can kind of just go in and just kind of relax, especially if you do the Devil's Roar one, where you're not really worried too much about people showing up randomly, which is what I started doing as they added that, where I'll just basically hop in there, listen to a show, and just kind of run around with the lantern and look for skeletons. All of that's pretty nice. The only thing that's not really casual or relaxing about it is the going and selling the treasure at Reaper's Hideout. That's the only thing that's, not as fun. And then I understand what this voyage is. Messed up that. But Mercenary Skeletons. Now this is one I'm going to give good praise to. I've used this feature. I enjoyed using this feature. This feature had a range of different ways to use it. Yeah, I would give it that. There's different ways to use it, which is nice. I'll use this feature again, definitely. I have encountered other players using it. I have, but only once. I guess maybe I'll give it a 3, because I've only seen it once. This feature was well balanced. I do think it's well balanced, adds to the overall experience, and I understand what this feature is. Yeah, so I think this was definitely the best part of Season 16. Mercenary Skeletons, I think, are great. Unsealing Reaper chests. I had very little interest in this. I have used the feature. I'm going to give it a neutral, because I think it was terrible using it at the Sea Fort, because they can only stay on the one level where you release them. But I did use them at a Siren Treasury the other day to try to complete some of the accommodations for that. And actually, I found it to be quite useful there. I thought that potentially the skeletons would despawn when the water level rise in there, but I guess they updated so that didn't happen. So they just kind of hang out there. They don't fight against the sirens when they're underwater, but they do fight against the ocean crawlers and the other skeletons and stuff that spawn in there. So that was actually pretty nice. So I'm kind of like I have a mixed bag about that one, so I'm just going to give it a neutral. Had a different range. I mean, it's kind of just a one-trick pony, so I'll just, I'll give it that 2. I'll use this feature again in the future. I'm gonna give it a strongly disagree. Technically, I will be using it to try to finish the accommodations, but in general, if I've tried to think about that answer in terms of the actual gameplay itself and not the accommodation side of it. The truth of the matter is, there's no real reason for me to go out of my way to find a Reaper chest, which are usually like on the edges of the world, usually in obscure places that you have to travel far distance to go and grab them. And then it wouldn't really make sense for me to take that and go to a sea fort or a Siren Treasury or whatever and try to use that to complete the thing there. So I just don't really find myself using it in that kind of way. That's why I kind of said if the chest of bones took the place of the Reaper chest in terms of the accommodation side of things, I would use the chest of bones in favor of it. If they mentioned chest of bones in here, then I probably would give it a little bit more of a bump, but because they don't, I'm not going to. I have encountered other players using this feature. I have not seen anyone using this. Actually, that's a lie. I did see one person using it at the Fort of the Dam. This feature was well balanced, I guess. Sure. This feature has added to the overall season experience. I think in terms of taking something that was old and adding a new feature into it that's interesting, I will give it a little bit of a bump there because Reaper just already existed. But in terms of being a significant addition to the Sea of Thieves experience, I wouldn't really say it's too big of a overall experience added. So, and I understand what this feature is. Feedback on the new Reaper's Bones cosmetics. I thought they could have done a little bit more, but they're good. New cosmetics look great. I think they mostly did. I'll give it a 4 for that as well. The new cosmetics help me to roleplay. I'm just gonna go neutral with that. I don't really roleplay that much or really care too much. I have or intend to purchase and equip some of the new cosmetics. I'm gonna give that a 3. There's not much that I saw in there that I really care too much about. I do like the weapons, but other than that, I don't think I really would equip too much. I might equip the mask. That's the other thing, maybe. The requirement to earn and purchase these cosmetics was about right. I disagree with that. I feel like some of the accommodations were too high in terms of the voyages. 30 chest of bones is a lot. Doing that voyage 30 times, and then, you might have to do it even extra times if that ever gets stolen from you. Chest of bones isn't as bad because I think that's easier to get. The other one, the first voyage, where I think it's, what is it, 50 skulls, I think, you have to get to complete that accommodation. Just too much. And then you also have the whole issue of opening the Reaper chest at all the different, locations to see forts and all that kind of stuff. And because you can't do the chest of bones in that place, then it just makes it even worse. It makes it way harder to complete. So I think that, accommodations were all a mess for Season 16, at least in my opinion. Overall, these cosmetics are a valuable addition to the game. Sure. I mean, Reaper's Bones definitely needed some more stuff, so I'll give it more. I am aware of the Reaper's Bones cosmetics, yes. How would you rate the following season progression system? Renown, the quality of cosmetics available through seasonal progression. I can't even really recall anything that's significant from this season's past, even though I do remember liking it. So I think I'll give it a 4. I mean, I remember the Order of Bone and Blade, instruments. That's mainly what's popping in my mind. The volume of ancient coins available through seasonal progression should be the 250. I'll give it a 3, though, because they could always do more. The volume of gold available through season progression, I'm going to give this a 1. Not because there's not enough gold, but again, kind of like I was saying earlier with some other stuff, it's just that there's too much of it. It's not underpowered, it's overpowered, and I don't like getting gold as a reward, gold or doubloons in the season pass, because I get it so easily in the game naturally. So I don't want to get gold or doubloons as a reward. I'd rather get actual cosmetics as a reward. So I don't really like either of those being in there. And I honestly just kind of forget, that they're being added. Overall, do you think the amount of time required to progress through the season is 1 too long, 3 about right, 5 too short? I'm gonna go slightly too long. I would ideally like to be able to finish the season pass in a month and a half of the season. So by a month and a half in, I should be done with the season pass. That way, like I'm not stressing about it for the last month that we have of the game. How would you rate these events? I like Golden Glory. I think they need to do it more often. Um, Fight Night faction event. I'm gonna give that. I'm gonna give that a 1, honestly, mainly because Hourglass is just super boring. I don't like it, and that these fight nights don't really address those problems. It just kind of, forces you to play it so that you can earn those cosmetics or, whatever the case may be. So I don't really like those events. But the Athena one I did really like. That was fun. Pirate Emporium cosmetics. Overall, how would you rate the quality, the desirability? I'm gonna give this a 2, because this is something I've been talking about. Pirate Emporium cosmetics is that they need to be premium items. They shouldn't just be interchangeable with Outpost cosmetics. So not great there. And I'm gonna give the Lamplighter set a 2. I actually did, I think, a review on that. Was it? No, it was the Brewmaster one that I did a review. So you can check that out if you want. Dashing duels. I'm just giving these all 2, to be honest. How would you rate the quality and desirability of the cosmetics in the Season 16 Plunder Pass? I'm gonna give that a 4, honestly. I didn't really like this Plunder Pass that much. Think of the times you played during Season 16. How would you rate the following areas from 1 being poor to 5 being excellent? Quality and experience of bugs, very poor. Game stability, poor. Performance, I guess, might be more related to like lagging and stuff, which I think the lagging hasn't been as bad as like the getting kicked from the game, that kind of stuff. Open crew matchmaking, yeah, I don't know. I haven't done that in years. Cheating from other players, that's poor still. Toxic behavior from other players. The whole thing with toxic players, some people get more upset about toxic behavior in the game than I do. For me personally, I just don't really engage. And, I kind of just let them keep talking. Sometimes it's funny if I'm recording and then I can maybe use that as a funny clip. So I kind of just hoping that I can content farm off anyone being toxic and hopefully not too toxic that I can't post it. But, it doesn't really bother me too much. The only thing that really kind of aggravates me is people with stupid logic. This might be a hot take, but the people that say that running in Sea of Thieves is, terrible or cowardly or whatever you want to call it, I don't really view it that way. If the person that's chasing you doesn't have anything of value for you to steal from, you have no reason to go and try to fight with them and PvP with them. If you don't have even an emissary flag, you don't have any treasure on you, what value am I getting from spending my time attacking you? So, and then I also do think you have to have some certain level of skill set in terms of being able to sail and navigate away from someone chasing you and be able to figure out a way to get yourself away, whether it's, being good with the sail management, understanding the mechanics of the game in terms of how your ship moves compared to the ship that's chasing you, whether it's like, say, a brig does better with crosswind and you do better against the wind if you're on a sloop, that kind of stuff, as well as being able to use the environment to your advantage, like utilizing fog or islands to kind of mask where you're going and to use that to get away. I think all of that is, different skills being used. So that's the only thing that I think is in toxic behavior that don't really like, just because I think it's illogical, but not really because it upsets me or anything. So that's just kind of my opinion. Overall, what score would you give for season 16? Season 16, I'm gonna give it a below average, honestly, because I actually did like the Followers of the Flame Voyage that we got, and I think Skeleton Mercenaries are an amazing addition. But in terms of what a season should be, it's not really cutting it. And that was actually another video I was looking at making soon, talking about updates from the past, like we had with the Heart of Fire and the Ancient Vaults and all that kind of stuff, which all came out within basically a 2-season span if we were using the same system from back then. And back then, we just got so much more content within the same period of time as we are getting the season updates now. So the seasons just aren't really adding anything new or anything interesting, nothing that's really changing the game significantly. There's incremental changes, which is good, but not anything that's really groundbreaking or changing things up or really adding anything super interesting into the game. Most of the stuff that they introduce get forgotten about pretty quickly after the season releases. We haven't started season 17 yet, but I can almost bet you that, after the first month of season 17, no one's going to be doing that Smuggler's Route Run voyage anymore. Or the only people that will be doing it are the people that are trying to finish the accommodations. I don't really think people are going to be doing it for fun. With that said, though, once people stop doing the voyage, it'll probably be a lot easier to do the voyage going forward. Just kind of similar to the Skull Siren song. I waited a few months after the Skull Siren song released, and then I started doing the Skull Siren song to complete the combinations and stuff. It was so easy to do it afterwards because no one was fighting against me for it. So I might be doing these new cargo runs after the season's over or after, the first month is over, just because it will be so much easier to do it. What do I like most about Season 16? Definitely the Skeleton Mercenaries. What do you like least about Season 16? I'll say lack of world changes in terms of Reaper's Hideout. And forced PvP voyages. Because that's the main problem with both of the two voyages that we got for Season 16 is that they really are heavily trying to force PvP on the players with those voyages, where naturally PvP would occur with those voyages in other ways. At least that's my opinion. Same thing that happened with Skull Siren Song. No one wants to do these voyages because no one wants to be marked on the map or have these, limitations. I'm perfectly fine with the treasure being marked on the map at the end of it, but in terms of having the marker on the map for you're doing the whole voyage the whole time, that's just terrible. I think it heavily disadvantages solo players that will take longer to complete a voyage as opposed to, a crew of 2, 3, or 4. So that's I think the biggest problem with Season 16 is that people aren't going to engage with the new voyages because of this. Alright, so now we get to some of the more interesting stuff and the stuff I was really hoping for with this survey, which is talking about what we want to see in the game's future. Because the other stuff was just kind of, what they've already done. I don't really feel like we'll see that much changes to it in the future. They might get rid of the Reaper's Mark flag for the voyages if a lot of people respond about that, in terms of feedback to this or just other feedback in other areas. But, I don't really see too much changes with some of the stuff. The only thing I can see really changing a good amount is maybe the Cannon of Rage. I think they might improve that over time, but I don't really see this other stuff changing. So what kind of content would I like to see in the game's future? New sandbox tools and mechanics are always good. I will say narrative content. I wish I could kind of give a ranking instead of just a checkbox because I feel like I would rank this a little bit lower than something like this. I don't really care about cosmetics. More Pirate Legend content, I think, would be good, but it depends on how they do it. If it's similar to what they did with the Legend of the Veil, I don't really care about the Legend of the Veil, to be honest. I need something outside of that. Structured competitive events, nope. New world events, no, we don't need new world events. More train company voyages, no. New world regions and locations, that's probably going to be a popular one for people to choose. New ship types, nope. I think the ship types we have currently are, perfectly fine and balanced. I don't really want changes to that. I hate the cooperative events and raids. Please don't. I already know they're doing that for the second month of Season 17, which I'm not really that excited about. Updates to existing content, more captaincy options. Additional PvP experiences outside of faction battles. That might be a good one. Social tools, no. More competitive options, enhancements, weapons. Maybe, but I feel like we already have a pretty good balance of stuff already. Let's see how many is that. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I just take another look around. Does it let me? Oh, it does let me. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I'm just going to leave it as that, see if it pushes me out. What new content would you like to see in Sea of Thieves that wasn't on our previous list? I don't want to go too detailed onto this because I feel like it would just get ignored if it's something too long. Oh, I know what we should put. A tucking, sneaking around PvP faction separate from Reapers. Yeah, I think that's the shortest thing that I could say to them that I would want. That's what Smugglers should have been. It should have been the PvP equivalent of Reaper's Bones, but for tucking and sneaking around. because right now Reaper's Bones isn't really a good faction for that kind of gameplay because you don't really want to have a Reaper Emissary on you, so that doesn't really make sense. I don't think a tucking or sneaking around type of PvP faction should have an emissary on it because you don't really want to be seen like that. It does need progression and that kind of stuff, which is where the smugglers fall apart. And it does need some kind of activity or thing that makes it so that it stands out as that tucking faction. So potentially maybe you have a voyage that sends you out to go and sneak up onto either a player ship, or maybe it has like the Grand Maritime Union ships that we talked about in my Dream Seasons video. That if you haven't seen that already, I'll try to leave a link here for you to see that. But it could be a lot of things like that. So I think that's probably the best I could give them for it. Ooh, I feel the development team listens to the community. Nope. Communications are regular and transparent. I mean, I guess they are communicating often, they just aren't listening. I feel good about Nope. I intend to keep playing Sea of Thieves. I'll be honest, it's kind of up in the air. I don't really know. I would recommend Sea of Thieves to my friends. I'll be honest, I have really spent a lot of time, trying to convince a lot of people to play Sea of Thieves, and over the last year or so, I've just stopped trying because the game has not been in a great state, whether it's performance and all that stuff. But there's nothing really exciting about the game. Nothing is really changing. Nothing's really new. It's just the same stuff that we've been doing, but it's just becoming worse over time. Stuff like the diving mechanics had in Season 11, or, Hourglass taking the place of Arena. Alright, lastly, I am optimistic about the future of Sea of Thieves. I would disagree. I wish I could say differently, but, just everything we've seen from them, how long are we supposed to hold out hope? Basically, ever since Season 9, I would say, this game has been in a downward spiral. Season 8 was the last, really great season, and honestly, the legacy of Season 8 hasn't been great, with Hourglass being kind of, I wouldn't want to say a failure, but just an abandoned mess. It's been abandoned, essentially. And that, if they were going to invest the time into making Hourglass, they needed to make sure that it was maintained. And there were just some core flaws, like not having a time limit, or having the circle not shrink, or just being too big in general, that really caused that mode to flounder. So even despite that, I would say Season 8 was still the last great season that they've made. Everything since then has either been okay, passable, or terrible. What would you like to see us do more? Listen to fans about what content to make. Okay. What would you like us to improve? What would we like to see us do more? So I'm going to put that as the improve. What would you like to see us do more? I'm just going to say bigger. That do not have recycled. Yeah, I think that kind of covers the biggest problem that I have with Sea of Thieves, which is all the updates that we've been getting are pretty much recycled mechanics. So look at Season 17. This is probably the most egregious of all of them. We have new shipwrecks, which are reskins of the old shipwrecks. We have new skeleton forts, which are, they've, flatly said they're basically reskins of the old skeleton forts. They are replacing them. We have new skeleton ships, which they didn't even reskin those. They just added the new loot to them. I don't even know why that's even mentioned on the content update video or any of the feature list for the season. We have a new smuggler's voyage, which is actually just a cargo voyage. And can we just mention real quick, because I don't know if I'm ever going to talk about this in another video. The whole reason that they said the Smugglers League and this voyage exist is because apparently, the Merchants Alliance and all these other factions think this cargo is too dangerous to transport. How is a painting dangerous? How is a rum bottle dangerous? The only thing that you could say is dangerous is the new gunpowder barrels. So unless we're going to make a whole bunch of new explosive type of loot for the smugglers, then this comment or this explanation doesn't really make any sense. Enough said right there, but that's what I got to say about all that. Why do you play Sea of Thieves? Check all that applies. Experiment with the sandbox to find my own fun. Yeah, spend time with friends, meet new people, or unexpected social encounters. Narrative content to an extent. Take part in PvP, yes. I mean, I guess I'll count that. I'm gonna just go with that. I mean, I don't really want to check every box because technically you could say all of them apply, but those are kind of the main ones. And I think that covers, yeah, that finishes the survey. So it was an interesting survey to go through. It seems like they're going to be doing these monthly now, so I am excited about that. They talked about it during the community direct, so I think this is a good change that they're doing. I think this video was interesting. I hope y'all did find it interesting. Let me know in the comments below what you thought about it. Is there anything that you agreed with me on or disagreed with me on? And have you taken the survey yet? Let me know if you have already. And maybe we'll make this a monthly routine if they keep sending these out monthly. I think that would be fun to kind of go through and sit together and kind of reflect on what's been going on with the game every month or whenever they send these out. So that's all I have to talk about this video. I know this is pretty long just based off how long I've been recording. So thanks for watching, and if you enjoyed, it'd be great if you like and subscribed. And until next time, thanks for watching, and I'll see y'all later. Bye, y'all.